Hello, and welcome to my show, a series of lectures on multicultural communication. I am Dr. Marquita Byrd, and my students call me Dr. B. And I hope that if I ever meet you, you will do the same. The purpose of my lectures are to talk about multicultural communication, and I'm talking about it because every single day, each and every one of us engages in multicultural communication. Even if you're at home with your family, of course, we have intergenerational communication in our families, parents, children, grandparents. We have people who are gay in our families, so we always engage in multicultural communication. That's why it's important. Now, I have two goals for this series. The first one is that we come to understand and feel comfortable with diversity because it is a fact of life. It's not going to go anywhere. And instead of being fearful and anxious, learn to more about it so that you can be more comfortable with it. The second thing is that I want us to acquire knowledge and skills that will allow us to be better multicultural communicators. Of course, we know that anytime that effective communication occurs, then the interpersonal relationship goes better, the group goes better, the company goes better. In fact, I just read an article about compassion and organizations, and they said that compassion is the competitive advantage for the organization because the communication changes. So we're going to be talking about that now. Now, today we're going to be talking about a specific thing called microaggressions. And you may not have heard the word microaggressions, but when we talk about it, you'll realize that you've experienced them. Microaggressions um, create harm and they create discord among individuals on a daily basis. It causes discord among groups, and it certainly causes discord among organizations. Microaggressions are very important, and let's learn more about them. The first thing we're going to do, number one, is to define microaggressions. It is a term used for brief and commonplace daily verbal abuse or abuse that is behavioral or for environmental indignities, um, whether they're intentional or unintentional. And these microaggressions communicate hostility, may be veiled, they're derogatory, negative, prejudicial, or maybe slights, insults toward a person due to their membership in a particular group. Microaggressions. And this notion actually was coined in 1970 by a professor, Chester M. Pierce, at Harvard University. And I think that not enough people know about it, even in the 21st century, because microaggressions can be very harmful to everyone. So that's what a microaggression is. Let me give you some examples, and I hope it's not too exhaustive, but when I give you these examples, you may recognize it better. So I see it in families sometimes, microaggressions toward children. When they call children negative names and say, oh, you're just stupid, or you're never going to be anybody, you're never going to be able to take care of yourself to teens, you just don't fit in. That's microaggression toward the child. And when they hear it enough over and over, they internalize it. Just like I talked about isms, they internalize it, microaggressions. Let me give you another example. Calling a disabled person retarded is a microaggression. And I found out here recently that my oldest boy, who is challenged, when my younger son discovered that he was challenged, would call him retard when I wasn't at home. Wow. I was so hurt to find out that his brother did that. And he was hurt to do that. In fact, in my home, I never used the term retard. I never told my son he was retarded. I never told him he was slow. He wanted to know, of course, why he was different. And I said that you learn differently, and all people learn differently. So you're just like the rest of us. You learn in a different style. Another one would be saying to a dying person, and I actually had this happen in the hospital when my father was passing away. The doctor said in front of him, well, you're old, you have cancer, and there's no reason to continue treatment. Oh my God, what a horrible thing to say. I didn't expect the hospital to change their policies, but you don't say to someone, you're old, so we're not going to treat you. And that's basically what he was saying. That's a microaggression. Here's one that was particularly egregious. At my college, they were having a ceremony for Latina women who had achieved high grades, et cetera, and so forth. And one of the benefactors, we have people who, every university has people who donate money and donate uh, other sorts of things. So a speaker was there who was a member of folks who had donated money for Latinas on the campus. So this person got up to talk to the audience. It was a big audience. And this person said, and this was a woman, I give to this cause because, after all, Chiquitas don't exactly have the success DNA. This is what she said to the young ladies who were helping her. Chiquitas don't have the success DNA. Um, and so, wow, the students were, of course, offended and couldn't believe that she said what she said, but also, more importantly, uh, the university personnel who was handling the program did not correct her, and that person had a job to correct her because the students were hurt, and they should have said, "Well, that's not the thinking of San Jose State. We think you're all successful." And so that person was fired, actually, because we don't allow that kind of thing to go on. And the woman was dismissed from uh, the foundation that gives money to us. How debilitating! Here's another one. I have bipolar disorder, and for many years I suffered in my department because of how the disorder was impacting on me. My boss was pretty hard on me and accused me of being not wanting to achieve, etc., and so forth. So after he retired and I was retired, I said to him, I have bipolar disorder, and he said, "Oh, I always thought I was dealing with two people." Total um, dismissal of a mental health issue that is very serious. And he laughed about it. No, I didn't correct him because uh, he doesn't work here. He's retired, and he can't impact on my career anymore. So I just let it go. But it certainly hurt. Even ignoring someone in a group can be a microaggression. Often, my son, who is challenged, he'll be in social situations, and people won't talk to him. They act like he's not there. They think he has nothing interesting to say, and that happened even in my family with my dad, who had significant issues. But my dad wouldn't hold conversations with him. He would just come in and say, "Hi, grandson, how you doing?" Uh, that's a microaggression when you ignore someone's presence who is obviously there. Um, Telling someone how to pronounce their own name. This is the last one that brought me great outrage. I was out at dinner with someone. It was a colleague, actually, and a colleague said was talking about the origins of different names. And so then he says, "Well, Marquita, of course, your name is Spanish." How insulting! How do you know what my name is, and why are you telling me what my name is? And actually, I've had the research done on my first name, my middle name, and my last name. So I was able to reply, "No, my name is not Spanish. My name is Marquita, which is Italian, and it means little pearl." And so I was able to snap back at him and say, and he was like, oh, he was embarrassed. "Yeah, but you should be embarrassed about telling me how to pronounce my name." So it's very important then that we understand what microaggressions are. They're the little things that we do or say that hurt people, maybe we don't intend to. And I liken it to sending out little needles into the person. You send that out when you say those things, and they're small, but they hurt like hell. And it can derail someone during the day. The harm is number two. We define them, you got examples. Now let's talk about the harm. The harm is that it can cause people to become defensive at home or in the workplace. It can cause them to be emotionally drained. It can cause them to be discouraged, feel like an outsider. It interferes with social justice. And again, social justice has to do with making everything available to all the people. It can cause depression, believe it or not. It can cause anxiety, traumatic stress, physical reactions, high blood pressure, etc., and so forth. So that's the harm of microaggressions. Yes, the harm of aggressions are of microaggressions. It's very real. I remember my family, they always said, well, you're a bookworm, but you don't have common sense. What the heck does that mean? So they were applauding me because I read, but then being derisive because I don't think like them, which I didn't. I think outside the box. People would criticize me for that, so they would say, you don't have common sense. So they eventually tried to take my kids away from me because of this. And their excuse was, you're an egghead, but you don't have common sense. You can't possibly raise these children alone. And part of that was discrimination because I had gone so far in school. They were proud of me, but they really didn't understand who I was. So they had these microaggressions. Um, we see microaggressions all the time in bullying, where kids say negative things to other children. It can cause them to have low self-esteem. And unfortunately, we've seen many children who have committed suicide as early as 8, 11, 12 because of the microaggressions that people visit upon them at school, and then often physical aggression also. So microaggressions are not just little things. Oh, I didn't mean that, or you shouldn't be upset about that. And in fact, when you're talking to people, never tell them how they should feel. So if a person says to you, I'm hurt by this, don't say, oh, you shouldn't be hurt. Say, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. Please forgive me. Because the important thing is how they interpreted it, not what you said. Let's go on then. Again, the question is, what do you do about it? Because we all experiences. Saying like, saying things like the ditzy blonde, that's a microaggression. Calling a person a dwarf, who is actually, they like the term little people, or midget. That's a microaggression, not even having the right words to refer to people. So first thing to do is to recognize that it is a microaggression and understand that it can hurt. People say uh, that you can't be hurt by words. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That is not true. Words can hurt. Words can kill emotionally, to the extent that we actually have laws against verbal abuse for children. We actually have laws on the book in Missouri and other states. They recognize that as something that's extremely harmful. So recognize the microaggression first of all. Again, understand that the person may not know that they have engaged in a microaggression. Again, never assume that the person knows. They may not know that you're insulted by a particular thing or something that they say among their group and don't realize that, it's hurting this person who is not of the group. Always understand they may not recognize it. Then determine if the aggression is worth responding to. Sometimes, and that's based on your reaction. How much pain does it cause you? And sometimes students will correct me in class because I've engaged in a microaggression. One time we were talking about a rape in my interpersonal class, and I said to them, if I was raped, if I had a son, I would never tell him that his birth was the result of a rape because I felt like it would uh, destroy his self concept, make him angry, sad, and so forth. I said, but if I had a daughter, I might tell her that she was the result of a rape. And finally, one of my students said, well, why are you saying it to your son but not to your daughter? Why are you expecting her to bear the harm that you don't want to do to him? And I thought, well, that's a good point. And I said, I've changed my thinking on that. You're very right. So they called me out on it, and that was very, very important. I like when my students respond to me and give me honest feedback because otherwise, how can I know? So determine if that thing is worth you responding to. Um, uh, in public, you may describe what happened. Excuse me. Do you realize that you said ABC? Always describe first because often people don't even remember what they said. Identify the behavior as an aggression. That's very, very important. Nobody wants to have aggressive behavior toward them. You can be verbally aggressive, you can be physically, emotionally. Tell them how you feel when you say that I feel. Often we have microaggressions against children because we assume that children don't have feelings. Uh, Sometimes we do it to the handicapped. We feel that, we think they don't have feelings. People say things in front of my son uh, that are offensive. And my dad, again, he would say things in front of my son and would say, oh, well, he doesn't know what I'm talking about, or, that doesn't really hurt him. And I said, it does. He understands and he has feelings, so you can't do that. And then you ask them not to do that again. My son couldn't do that, but I could because I am his advocate at all times. Um, Lastly, understand that the aggression, again, is not about you personally. This is very, very important. The aggression is not about you personally. It is about an individual who is prejudiced, unaware, or is speaking from his habitual stance. And so it's not about you. And as long as you understand that it's not about you, then you don't take in the harm. For example, one of the we still see this, one of the favorite things when I was growing up for power dominant was to call black people the N word, and so many of my colleagues would be deeply hurt and offended. Of course, I was hurt, but I also reframed that to say to myself, he's using that word or she's using that word, but that's not about me. That's not who I am. So I don't have to feel bad about them saying that because, or sometimes people call me fat and they expect that to hurt my feelings. And I will say, yes, I am fat. And what you going to do about it? So you got to reframe those microaggressions and realize that they're not about you. So this lesson has been about microaggressions, something that happens all of the time that we may not even realize are hurting us. If if you've worked in a multicultural setting, for example, you may find yourself coming home tired, weary, mentally and physically, because you've been dealing with the microaggressions every day, all day. And so you need to be aware that they are there. I want to thank you for being with me today. I want to tell you that, suggest that if you want to learn more about microaggressions, click the link at the bottom of the video where you'll see a PowerPoint and lecture notes. And I'd like to end by saying, join me again, and in the words of Mr. Spock, live long and prosper.